Hello everyone, my name is Mihai and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I will start machining the ram to attach the Bridgeport head to my Harrison mill. The ram build will be spread over two parts. First part containing the rear end of the ram with the dovetail component, and the second part containing the front part of the ram. Without any further ado, let's just get right into it. All the metal stock I have bought from Rapid Metals, and I'm not sponsored by these guys by any means. It's personally just my preferred supplier because they offer really good turnaround times at really competitive rates. So why not? It's literally a no-brainer. The plate for the dovetail, this is overall the chunkiest part of all. There is quite a bit of material removal from this part and a little bit extra from the facing off procedure. The main mounting plate for the front part of the ram, I got this laser cut from DMS Laser Profiles. It is 3 millimeters longer and wider than the finished size, just so that I have enough material that I can remove to square it up nicely. And this is the point where the havoc in cutting the dovetail started. I have done a test pass just to see how bad it is at relatively shallow depth of cut, and it is pretty terrible. Unfortunately, I have tried with many different other cutters with all carbide brazed tips, but they all seem to suffer from the same problem, having pretty poor grinding on them, so it was mostly cutting on one or two teeth out of the eight. It's been quite a long and annoying procedure to do, but thanks to a lot of editing and noise dampening, it doesn't really sound as terrible as it did when I cut this, and it almost took me 3 hours per side to do the dovetails, and it was pretty painful. But overall, it turned out pretty good. At some point, I started to take really shallow cuts because I wanted to have the tightest tolerance possible, so that when it's gonna be mating with the dovetail on the machine column, it will be as play free as possible. if I would take a moment to reflect on this part, it's not one of my proudest moments. The finish is absolutely terrible on it because I've done two mistakes whilst I was using the shell mill on this. It pretty much looks like orange peel, and that's mostly due to the fact that when I machined it, it was sitting on 1, 2, 3 blocks and not on the mill table, straight onto the table, and that caused a lot of vibrations, which affected the way the shell mill was doing its job. Uh, I have also checked um, if all the cutting tips of all the inserts from the shell mill were at the same level, and they were. On the second triangular part, I have rested it on the mill table, and the finish is slightly better, but not the best. And after a lot of investigation and a lot of blaming games, I decided to look further into the problem, only to discover that the preload nut that establishes the preload on the bearings for the vertical head was just a bit loose, and also the set screws that are holding it locked in position were loose. Now, maybe I have forgotten to do the final preload when I have repaired the machine almost 3 years ago, and it's just been like that. And due to the vibrations that were happening during the dovetail cutting, it just made it worse, and then it affected the way the shell mill was doing its thing onto these plates. A lot of other parts suffered from the same problem because of the lack of bearing preload that was causing um, play in the spindle, making the finish look like orange peel. But almost upon full completion of all the parts, including the ones for the front part of the ram, I corrected the problem, and the remaining components turned out pretty great, which you will be able to see on the making of the front ram. With the machining completed, I have also decided to paint this before assembly. This have been drying for 8 days now. There are some brush stroke marks on some of these bits. I believe it was a bit too cold in the garage when I painted this. I've used really good paint from Paragon, which is known for having a pretty long wet edge, and normally you would not get uh, such evident um, brush marks like you will see on some of these parts, but it was probably a bit too cold when I painted this. Plus, they have 3 coats of paint, so probably at some point you will end up with some brush marks. This is the main and probably the most important part of this back end of the RAM assembly. The dovetail, I have not painted the underside of it because this has been machined to a very tight tolerance. So any extra material here, aka the paint, might affect the way it's gonna be sliding in. First things first, I will have to insert the 6 mm dowel pins on either side of this. I have pre-assembled and drilled and rimmed these parts so that now during assembly I just shove the dowel pins in, put the bolts, torque them up, and that should be it. It's a very, very tight fit, which is good. Before I can put the next side on, I'll have to put this front plate in its position. Otherwise, if these are trying to close in a little, I will struggle to insert this. On this plate, there are a lot of holes. These two are for 8 mm dowel pins to keep the front part of the ram square to the rear part of the ram. These holes are to bolt the front of the ram to this. And now probably the most important ones here, these are for tramming set screws. So I'll have 4 M10s in these holes, which I'll use for tramming. And I will fully insert them once I have the bolts in. These 3 here are M10 and these 5 at the bottom are M8s. I'll just pre-tension them like this and I will torque everything down at the end. Nice. And these are extractable dowel pins. They have a flat ground onto them and an M4 thread at one end. And this is this part assembled and it's already very heavy. Considering there is more to go on this, it's already pretty damn heavy. looking like on the inside. I think it turned out quite good. On a closing note, I would like to say a huge thanks to my subscribers, to all of you that are watching my content and that are tuning in every week to see my progress. Please stay tuned to the next video release where I will be machining the front part of the RAM. That's it for this video. Thank you all for watching and I will see you in the next one.